Some people have drugs, some people have gambling, and a handful of the odd few have an addiction to chalk. But my poison of choice is horror movies. Anything other than gore I can do. You name it, I've binged it until my eyes have turned red. Religious horror, possession, zombies, body horror, paranormal, found footage. Even the bad horror movies ended up being a pretty good comedy. The average person's main complaint when watching a horror movie is that they freak them out or give them nightmares. To that I say, yeah, that's fair. After I watched Barbarian, I didn't sleep for a full 3 days. For film critics, however, they complained that all horror is mindless, all blood and makeup, meant to be grouped in with the raunchy comedies and cheap thrillers. The last movie to win Best Picture at the Oscars was Silence of the Lambs in 1991, if you can possibly believe that. I know what you're thinking. That is absolutely ridiculous. Or not. It's hard for me to say since I can't see you. If I could, I'd go to the Oscars and spit in the face of every member of the Academy, because I believe horror is the most impactful, artfully done genre out of all the films, and that's a hill I'd die on. Throughout history, horror movies have always been a product of their time, carefully molded by the paranoia and anxieties of the public. It shows that the director thinks people fear the most, as well as provides the director a place to deliver a societal message to a captive audience. The mark of a talented director is knowing their audience. Even when attempting to make a worthwhile horror film, you need to ask yourself, what do the audience fear? Because scary masks and realistic blood is what you think of when you hear horror, but it needs something behind it to really make them squirm. A scary mask can make a movie memorable, sure, but it doesn't haunt you. It doesn't reach inside of you and grab that pit of fear that constantly sits in your stomach and sloshes it around its pale grit, leaving you sweating. A true horror that can manage to do both, frighten you with its monsters and gore, but also strike a chord of genuine fear by reminding you what you really fear outside the darkened theater. Horror backed by dread. A groundbreaking classic horror that managed to do both is the still beloved movie The Thing from 1982, which was widely interpreted as an allegory for the paranoia of the Red Scare era, which was a period of anti-communist hysteria driven by the fear that the Soviet Union would infiltrate and soon overthrow the U.S. government. People began suspecting their co-workers, their neighbors, their friends to be communist spies. People were being blacklisted from the workplace, especially in the film industry. The plot of The Thing involves an alien which can perfectly imitate other life forms and hide among them. The film explores themes of paranoia, disguised imposters, and distrust, which perfectly mirrors the fears and anxieties during the height of the anti-communist hysteria, making it all the more scary for its viewers. The Thing isn't the only horror movie that tries to play tricks on the already paranoid and mistrusting human mind. Other famous movies play with the concept of a quote-unquote monster playing in hindsight. The Silence of the Lambs providing a great example. Not only did this movie make history for Anthony Hopkins' award-winning performance, and is one of the very few Oscar-winning horror films, Silence of the Lambs is the introductory debut of one of the most iconic horror villains of all time. Hannibal Lecter is just a man who throws dinner parties and goes to the opera. He's well-loved in his elite social circle. He's refined and well-educated, and yet he's totally sick, depraved, and sadistic. A homicidal man who views others as nothing but meat and serves human flesh at his esteemed dinner parties, with no one able to see through the human suit he has created for himself. Hannibal Lecter stands out because unlike other killers who come off as completely unhinged and live fully separated from society, Hannibal was a wolf easily hidden among sheep. A sociopath could easily be anyone. This movie also manages to convey a subtle commentary on the upper class. No one suspected Dr. Lester of his crimes due to his luxurious social presence. No one looking past that to see his overall lack of humanity, no kindness or empathy, because all his relationships are shallow. My favorite aspect of horror as a genre is its ability to portray impactful critiques on society. They aren't documentaries where they bore you and slam the messages over your head. They're capable of being dreadfully enjoyable, and yet still give a director a vessel to provide a social commentary between any jump scares. My favorite director, Jordan Peele, is known for creating horror movies that are never only just horror movies. They carry a deep symbolism and meaning, while also being pure nightmare fuel. The movie Us is a perfect example as a movie that made me think just as much as it made me hide my eyes behind my hands. A movie that plays with the concept of doppelgangers forced into tunnels underneath America with no free will, eventually starting an uprising to kill the people above the surface and replace their lives. The basic concept clearly connects us with the class war, the doppelgangers in the tunnel being the lower class. Uprising in the upper class family is meant to symbolize the American upper class, obsessed with shallow material objects, and try to solve any problems with money and things. Throughout a film depicting a gory, widespread massacre, it includes subtle nods to materialism, superficialness, class consciousness, and the failure of the American dream. In many popular modern horrors, the threat of a monster is meant to symbolize a real danger in our actual lives. The film Hereditary, the possessive cook stalking the family, also functions as a stand-in for hereditary mental illness that's passed down between family members throughout generations. The newly released Australian film Talk to Me is the threat of possession is being used to represent addiction in teens going through grief. And that's the magic of horror movies. You can do anything you want with them. They're a perfect vessel for creativity and symbolism. And if you're a good director and if you're a good writer, you can do magical things with this.